Welcome to our program, General Trinquand.
Thank you for inviting me.
Commander-in-Chief of the Ukrainian Army, General Syrsky, said that Ukrainian troops have successfully stopped Russia's advances in the Pokrovsk direction. He says that it was one of the aim of the Kursk offensive to divert Russian troops to stop them from redeploying their resources, their troops. What is your take on this achievement of the Ukrainian army?
I think that the attack 1 month ago in the Kursk region was a major surprise for everyone, for those who are observing, but also for the Russian. But as usual, the Russian was following their strategic view, which is to attack in the direction of Pokrovsk, and not to divert troops to Kursk. That was the initial for the 4 last weeks. But apparently now the Russians are changing, and they understand that they can't stay without doing anything in the Kursk region. So the news you are providing us is that they stopped the advance in the Pokrovsk region is a major achievement. The second major achievement is that Russians have shown that they've got no operational reserves. They were not able to attack at the same time at Pokrovsk and send reserves in the Kursk region. They were obliged to take company size everywhere and to send them in Kursk in a very badly organized command structure. That's the second success of the operation, the Ukrainian operation in Kursk. And I think the third, which is of major importance at the strategic level, is that the US, who have been for years, 2 years, asking not to attack Russia directly, now they are applauding to the attack in Kursk, which is in Russian territory. So this is a major achievement at the strategic level.
From your perspective, how do you see the major achievements of the Ukrainian troops also after this beginning of this operation in the Kursk region? What did you impress the most in the first days of this surprise offensive inside the Russian soil? Because it was the first time since the beginning, since the Second World War.
Yes, I think the major success initially at tactical level is to have to surprise the Russian, have kept this offensive secret and being able to attack in Russian territory without an immediate reaction from the Russian. They were able only to react with air force, but on the ground, they was really surprised. So that was a major success. Second point is that the way the Ukrainian forces were organized with light reconnaissance, trying to find a way in the Kursk region, and secondly, able to concentrate forces in order to reach a certain line. Of course, not the city of Kursk, neither the nuclear power, but the ground, but also to have kept many prisoners in order to have the possibility to exchange these prisoners. I think this was very important. And this was the surprise because, after 1, 2, 3, 4 days, everybody will say, okay, it's finished. No, it lasts for 4 weeks. And now the Russian forces are establishing the Ukrainian forces are establishing themselves in Russian territory, and that will give cards for a next negotiation with the Russian because they are in less good position. I will not say bad position, but less good position than they were 3 months ago when the Russians were advancing in Ukraine. And there was no bargain possible for the Ukrainian forces.
Also, how do you see the possible rules for the negotiations between Ukraine and Russia? And do you feel that this moment for the beginning of this process is right now? Is right now to begin this process from your perspective, or it would be better for Ukraine to move forward and try to, and also to continue its successes, to continue advances even more deep inside the Russian soil?
No, I think that it will be a very difficult time for negotiation for Ukraine. It will need sacrifice. It will need to say, okay, the Russians have taken partly Luhansk and Donetsk oblasts, which they decided to annex in September 22. Probably this will be a victory for President Putin to say, we are protecting, as they say, Russian people in this oblast. But with the Kursk offensive, this showed to Russia, you can't go further. You are losing ground now. And so if you think that it is a victory to occupy major part of Luhansk and the oblast of Donetsk, you will not have Kherson and Zaporizhzhia. And we will be in a position to discuss that and to give you back the ground in Russia. I think really that it will be very difficult to go further in Russia. There is a victory. There will be difficulty, or perhaps there will be a big change inside the Russian power. That's out of my perspective. My perspective is that with this victory in Kursk, you have a victory. The Russian can claim that they've got a victory, but this is not the victory they wanted to have. And you have to discuss. As you know, Ukraine have a problem with its population, which is diminishing because of the birth rate, because of the people who are outside the country, and because the soldiers who are killed on the ground. So the main objective is to protect the population.
From your perspective, in your previous answer, you said that Ukraine offensive inside Russia forced Russia to redeploy its troops from the east of Ukraine to the Kursk region. Do you feel that Russian troops are playing in this game according to the Ukrainian rules right now?
The news you were providing is quite new. We have been waiting for 4 weeks the reaction of the Russian. The reaction of the Russian was very bad. First, they established a new command structure, very badly organized, not under the army umbrella, but under the secret service. First thing. Second thing, they've got no troops to deploy there. And so they took small units, no company, half battalion, from everywhere, even from Burkina Faso. The Bear Brigade was redeployed from Burkina Faso to the front, and from Kaliningrad. So I think we have been waiting for 4 weeks that they will take some troops from the Donetsk axe of attack and to put them in Kursk. Apparently, they are doing that. If they are doing that, it's because they know that they have achieved the ceiling of their forces in this offensive. They've lost many soldiers that they know that they will take their immediate objective, but they will not be able to go further. And so I think that we will see the next week if they are able to organize something in the Kursk area, or will the Ukrainian forces will maintain a strong defensive position in this region.
Do you think that Russian troops are too exhausted on the east of Ukraine to move forward and to try to make some new advances?
I think they are at a point, we call that the culminated point. They have provided all the forces they were able to provide. And we see that in Kursk because they are not able to provide, say, a division or two divisions. They are just able to take parts of units elsewhere. So I think they are really at the summit of what they are able to do in the war currently. And so that's where you can discuss with the Russian now and say, look, you have been achieving many things in Donetsk, but you are not able to defend the Russian soil. So we'll stop there and we'll discuss.
From your perspective, if there is a peaceful solution of this war in such matter, as you said, that like to exchange territory, ground, and to reach some a sort of a deal, from your perspective, would this deal last for a long time?
As you know, this war is an object created by Mr. Putin. So it will very much depend of the power in Kremlin. But also it will depend of the election in the US. It's less than 2 months' time now. And we will see, because Mr. Putin could be reinforced by the arrival of Mr. Trump. If Mr. Trump is not elected, then Mr. Putin will understand that on the long course he is not winning. And so this will probably change things inside the power in the Kremlin.
Also, recently, head of the MI6, Richard Moore, and CIA Director William Burns said that this Kursk offensive inside Russia raised some serious doubts among the Russian elites about where it's all going, where it's all headed. From your perspective, how do you see this influence of this operation on the minds of those people who are near Vladimir Putin, on the minds of his inner circle? How do they perceive this offensive right now?
I think that they can really look at the limits of the Russian power. And they see that they need to change something. War is in the interest of this power, meaning that, as you said previously, the agreement will be a short-term agreement because they need war. So they need to show that still in numbers, they are ready to fight, but they can't go further. That's the first point. Second point is the interest of China. China will be very interested if Russia is not able to go more than where Russia is now, because China will be really the great power in the future, will face the US, and Russia will no longer be important in the strategic view of China.
From your perspective, how do you see the possible options for the Russian side, for Vladimir Putin right now? Can he survive this long-term offensive inside Russia for a long time, or he cannot survive this situation without reaching a deal with Ukraine?
We have seen in the last week the fact that the Russian government has said that it will start negotiation on the basis of what was discussed in March 22 in Turkey. So we'll see, because this discussion at that time was a discussion about the status of Ukraine not joining NATO, being neutral. But as you know, European Union has opened the door to join European Union. But I think the main objective for Putin is not joining NATO. That's the first point. The second point is that discussion on the ground problems will last. So there will be something like a ceasefire, which will discuss on the line. And then Ukraine has a card with Kursk saying, okay, but then you stop in the Kherson and Zaporizhia oblasts, and we'll retrieve our forces from the coast area, but there will be something like a ceasefire and not really a peace, I think.
Also, former commanding officer at the US Army Europe, General Ben Hodges, said that Vladimir Putin would be removed from his office by his inner circle and oligarchs unless he stops the war in Ukraine. Do you agree with that?
I think that's exactly the objective of the next discussion. Because if Putin is in a position to say we are defeated, then the inner circle will probably change the master in Kremlin. So that's why the negotiation will be very sensitive, because you need to understand how far you can go. Do you have allies inside the Kremlin or not? Are you able to push Putin outside because he's defeated? This really, I don't know. I'm not a specialist in Kremlin.
Also, from your perspective, how do you see the possibility for Russia to join and to participating in the Global Peace Summit, which would be organized by President Zelensky? Do you see the possibility to reach a peaceful settlement or any kind of a ceasefire on such a Global Peace Summit?
I think it will be of major importance that Russia is part of this global summit. As you know, there will be a meeting in New York next week, the General Assembly, the year meeting, where Mr. Zelensky, I guess, will be there. He will discuss with several people. And this is the perfect location. I've been there for many years to discuss in the corridor with people to see what are the tendency. Will India help Ukraine? Will China finally, because they don't want to see India taking the lead, will help Ukraine? All this will be very interesting, but certainly Russia must be part of the negotiation, but being part of the negotiation after a small defeat, which is Kursk's operation. So it will be not a victorious Russia, but a Russia who has a need to discuss.
From your perspective, also, The Economist reported that President Zelensky, during his visit to New York, would meet with President Biden, and also he would try to persuade President Biden to allow Ukraine to strike deep inside Russia with the US-made weapons. What is your personal opinion of that, and could it be a part of a bigger plan to end the war in Ukraine using military force, long-range strikes on Russian territory, and to force Russia to negotiate with good faith?
Yeah, I think the US should provide the authorization to use long-range weapons against military targets. When I say military targets, of course, I put in that aircraft, military bases, but also petroleum refinery and things like that. I think they should provide the authorization, and probably the fact that they have changed their position after the Kursk operation is probably a trigger to have a second authorization for these targets. This will need what we call the target assessment cell, where the US will be out with the Ukrainian to see exactly where will be the target. And there is a plan for target, which is done in NATO. We do that very often. So, usually. So that can be done between Ukraine and the US.
I would like also to cover the position of the French government towards this offensive inside Russia. It seems like we haven't heard any kind of a big statements from President Macron and the French government. how do you see, what is the reaction of the French government towards the Kursk offensive?
No reaction, because in France we've got major political internal problems. So this is not the point to discuss about foreign policy. But I think we've got no problem with that. There were French equipment used in Kursk. For example, VAB were used there, and there was no refrain from the French government on that. I think there will be no discussion on that as far as we are in this internal political discussion, difficult in Paris. Next week in New York, I guess that President Macron will be present, will be able to discuss directly with President Zelensky. And there is no problem about the support of France for Ukraine generally.
Do you feel that the French government really supports this offensive inside Russia privately?
Yes, certainly. There was no discussion about that. France's deal, you know that France is currently training a brigade, a Ukrainian brigade in France, is training pilots on the fast jet, not F-16, of course, because we don't have them, and will prepare to provide Mirage 2000.5. So we are the French people are really supporting Ukraine, but currently the internal problem in France are on the front line. That's why, for example, I'm less on the TV program in France because they are talking internal politics. But there is no discussion about the support of Ukraine.
Oh, I hope that these discussions will be renewed and will be on the TV shows on your country. But thank you for doing it today. Thank you for your time, General Trinquand, and glory to Ukraine.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Glory to Ukraine.